So if to add this, you would go to the following website. You go to socialnetimporter.codeplex.com. And you then go to a downloads, and there's a file that you can download. It should start automatically, I think. No, it's here, I think. Yeah, and then it will automatically download. And then you open it up in wherever. And then there are 4 files, so I'll show you where those files go. So here I am, and I've my downloads. No, there are 2 files. No, that's the old one. Social Net Importer. Here it is, version set 1.7. It has these 4 files in it, and you simply copy them. You take them and you copy them into the following directory. My computer, well, at least on mine, it's C drive, program files, Social Media Research Foundation, Node Excel template, plugins, and you put them in there. Okay. There's instructions in the Social Net Importer web page, but you put those 4 files into this directory here, which is plugins, which sits under Node Excel template, under Social Media Research Foundation, and then you reopen your Node Excel, and then you'll have these options there for you. These 4 options or menu items. Facebook fan page, Facebook group network, and Facebook personal network. And the fan page network, what this allows you to do is identify networks of people who are interacting on a particular fan page, or what Facebook call a fan page. So let's have a look at the one that they suggest. So if I go into Google and I search for Facebook and Wikipedia, there's a page down here. This is it. It's the Wikipedia page on Facebook. And you can see here that people are making these, Wikipedia are making these posts. This is the timeline. This is the most recent post they made on Friday. This is the next most recent post, which is also on Friday. And you can see under each post there's this activity going on. There are people who are liking it. There are people who are commenting on it. And there's 6 more comments there. And I
think one has shared it.
Okay, and there are people
on the right of that.
What, this? Oh yeah, and there are people who are sharing it. Okay, I need to log on to see that. Okay, I don't want to log on at the moment. So this is the fan page for Wikipedia, and it's possible to look at the interactions of these, to identify, construct a network which shows the people who are interacting, the connections between people, because they are interacting on a same. They are either commenting to or liking a given post on this fan page. So let's do it now. So I've just opened up the import. It says import from Facebook fan page network. I'm going to select to just collect the minimum amount of data, because it can sometimes not work if you collect more than that. So these are the attributes of the people that I'll be collecting, and I'm going to collect. I'm just going to leave the user. These other options I'll leave as they are, and then down here it says download the X number of most recent posts. So I think I'll download the 5 most recent posts. And I need to log in. What you're actually doing is giving NodeXL access to your Facebook account. But as I said, it's not, don't expect anything, any problems associated with that. And it's the only way you can get the data. So now I've hit download, and you can see here it's collecting information. And it's finished. So now I have vertex data and edges data, and I can graph the network. And this is a network of people based on their comments. There's an edge between 2 people if they have both commented on the same post on the Facebook fan page. That's how it defines an edge. So, and you can just go ahead and analyze it in the way that we've already been looking at. So, and I'll just see if there's any. Yeah, so you can see here the relationship is co-comments, because that's all I selected to collect. So people are connected if they have both commented on the same post. And you can actually see their comments here as well. So this is where NodeXL can be used for text analysis. I didn't demonstrate it in the context of Twitter, but it is possible to do some basic text analysis in NodeXL using text data, which is from the embedded. It's the tweet text data, and also in this case the actual comments that people are writing on the Facebook posts. And that's the fan page. As I said, this is my EgoNet with me removed, and the question that I was then about to ask and answer is, how do you collect other people's EgoNet data? And you can't do it. You can only collect your own personal network, because you have to actually authenticate with Facebook using a valid username in order to collect that person's EgoNet data. And so how do you do it for other people? And the answer that I have is you have to create your own software to do that. At least as far as I know, there's no other tool that allows you to do it unless you've got to deal with Facebook directly, and it's very hard to get those types of research collaboration or data sharing deals. So I wanted to show you quickly something from research that I'm involved in at the ANU. How do we collect other people's EgoNet data from Facebook? Well, the way we're doing it at the ANU, and this is a presentation that my PhD student Mahin Raisi created for conferences that we've been to recently, and also for a training course that we ran last week. So I'm just going to quickly flick through some of these slides. And it's impossible for me to do this without standing over here. So I'm just going to skip over background information on our research. Basically, the research project is about, it's an ARC-funded research project looking at how social networks contribute to successful ageing. And so we have an industry partner, which is National Seniors Australia, and there's a couple of aspects of the research. We've conducted a survey where we ask older Australians about their social networks, about their ageing status. So it's questions about their well-being, both psychological and physical well-being, and we want to know about how they connect with people within the family and outside of the family. And so that was an offline survey, well, an online and an offline survey that we conducted. But the part of the research that I'm most involved in, and Mahin Raisi, who's my PhD student, her PhD is focused on this research, is we've created a tool called OSON, which stands for Australian Seniors Online Networks. And it's a Facebook application that we created, and we are recruiting older Australians to participate in our study. So it's older Australians who are on Facebook. We ask them to install our Facebook application, and in doing that, we are then able to collect their personal network data, and we also ask them questions about their well-being. So we're collecting information on both their ageing status and also their social networks within Facebook. And I'm going to take you through the screenshots of OSON just to show you what it basically looks like. So the starting point is after the person has authenticated, so it's like installing a normal Facebook application. You have to, we provide information on the nature of our study. So we're essentially going through the phases of getting informed consent from our research participants. We ask them, we tell them about our study, what data we're going to be collecting, how they can withdraw from the study if they want to withdraw, etc. And then Facebook also gives them information about what data this Facebook application will be collecting from their Facebook profile. So they're fully informed about exactly what's involved with the research and what data we're picking up from their profile. After they've consented and installed the Facebook application, they come to this page, and we show a graph of their ego network. So this is one of the participants. This is actually either me or Mahin. It's not a real person's, but one of our people in our study's EgoNet, although it's anonymised anyway. But that's what the ego network looks like. We then ask them questions about whether or not they're eligible to vote in Australia, because we're only focusing on Australians, and also their year of birth, 19. And if you're older than 50, then you're able to continue to the rest of the study. We actually have a low definition of what a senior is, because that, on that basis, I'll be a senior in a few years, and I'm not particularly happy about that classification. That's our industry partners' cut-off point in terms of membership. But if you're a senior, according to OSON, then you're able to continue to the next part of the study. If you would like to do this, if you'd like to test our software out, we'd be very happy for you to do it. We'll be storing your data, but we won't use it in our study, and we don't want to use your data in our study. So what we'd appreciate is if you do use OSON, at the end there's a section where you can enter in comments, and you can just say, mention this TASA course. And then we'll know that you're a participant from TASA and you're not a real person, a real elderly person, because you're going to have to lie about your age in order to do this. You're going to have to say that you're born in 1913 or something. After authenticating and being verified as an older person, and by the way, we also collect age from the Facebook profile as well. So that's another way that we collect age data. But you're presented with this. Now, what this is showing is we have grouped people. We've created groups from people's ego networks based on the density of interlinkages. So in that Node Excel, I showed you the divided day blog network, and it was very clear that there were two clusters there. So in Node Excel, it's possible to automatically cluster or identify clusters or groups within a network. And we're using a similar algorithm here to identify people's groups within their personal network. And so what you're presented here is all of the groups that we identify. And we don't classify them in any way because we don't know who these people are. I mean, we know what we can collect from Facebook. We don't know necessarily your connection to these people. So we ask you to actually then attach metadata to the groups. So you might say, okay, this is my family. These are my work colleagues. So the other thing you can do is you can actually drag and drop people around between groups, because if we've misclassified someone, so, on the basis of the ego network, it looks like this person is a part of part of this group, but in fact we've got it wrong. Then you can drag them out and put them into another group. The next step is Well, what about people who are important to you but who are not on Facebook? So we are interested in we're interested in using this tool not just to collect information on Facebook networks, but also we want to know about significant relationships with people who are not on Facebook, because of the context of this study is about social networks in general and successful aging. It's not just online social networks and successful aging. So at this step, people can actually create up to 10 new offline contacts. So these are people who are significant for them, but they're not on Facebook. And you can come up with a name and put in some attribute data for that person. And then you can also say what groups that person belongs to in that stage. And then the next stage is, and this is where I think this tool can be a bit controversial in some ways, but we got ethics approval through the ANU, so we did everything correctly. But we actually asked people to provide some information about the nature of their relationship with other people. So this is a way of actually attaching edge weights to ties in Facebook or social network ties. So we're asking people, the question is, how close do you feel to your social contacts? So we ask people to drag people from the boxes into these boxes here. So, and it goes from very close, close, neither close nor far, far, very far. So this is a way to actually create some weights for the social tie data in the network. The next part, and this is where Mahin's, this is really the focus of her PhD. She's taking a social capital perspective. So she's wanting to understand how social networks impact on successful aging, and she's using a social capital conceptual framework. So she's wanting to quantitatively measure what is the level of social capital that people have in their different social networks, and then we're using statistical techniques to see whether there are correlations between particular social capital formations and the outcome variable, which is successful aging. And so what Mahin has done here is she's adapted a survey technique that's used in social capital research and has been, it's a well-known, well-established approach in social capital research called the resource generator approach. And that is where you have a survey and you identify a certain number of resources that you think are important to the people that you're studying, and you ask the people who in your social network has that resource. So the resources, we've got 10 of them listed here, but I'll read these out. You're asked, do any of your social contacts have these skills or resources, and what about yourself? And one of them is know about financial matters, has good computer skills, knows about the law relating to your landlord, your employer, or government regulations, could help your family or yourself to get a job, knows a lot about health. And so people are asked to drag their friends into these boxes when their friends have these resources. And they're also asked to tick the box if they have the resource themselves. And then the next step is actual social capital. So the previous one was potential. So I may have a friend who knows about the law, but I'm asked in this next step is this a person that if you needed access to that resource, you would feel okay about asking for it? So it's about the actual flow of resources. And so again, people are asked to drag people in boxes. This is the next step where you're asked who makes you feel happy or unhappy. So yes, so it's quite sensitive data. As I said, we got ethics approval for it. But you're asked to drag people. So what we're doing here is we're wanting to get a sense of again, it's more qualitative information about the nature of ties. The reason why we included this data is because we're interested in studying the idea that happiness might be contagious. There's research that's been it's controversial research in terms of whether or not the statistics hold up, but it's the idea that that behaviour it can be socially contagious in the sense that people can influence other people's in terms of their behaviour or their outlook. And I think it's clear that people do influence each other through social networks, but it's actually very hard to resolve exactly to what extent that's happening. And just because two people are connected in a social network and they're both people who rate themselves as being depressed, a lot of the time, doesn't mean they're causing each other to be depressed. It could be to do with other shared attributes that they have, or it could be because they became friends because they met at a sort of a workshop for depressed people. So it's kind of the homophily versus social influence story is. That's a very big aspect of research into social networks, is to what extent do people influence other people, and so we're collecting data on that in the context of successful ageing. But I'd say that this is kind of lesser importance to our overall research. And then finally, it's an online survey, so I won't go through any of the details here, but this is a very standard sort of survey for collecting information on people's well-being and other personal attributes that could be relevant in this context. These are the ego nets that we collected so far. We've got 112 participants. We're a bit disappointed. I don't know how many I was expecting. I didn't think it would be thousands, but I was hoping we'd get several hundred participants. We're going back into the field in October this year to get a second wave of data, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more people. We had a bit of trouble. This was hugely costly experience creating this software, and this is what gets back to my earlier comments. For people who are embarking in research in this area, to the extent that you can, use other people's software, because even though it's fun creating software, it's also incredibly time-consuming, and it detracts from. If you're doing a social science PhD, your best bet is to be producing good social science through writing research papers. And if you're creating software, that's fine, but you've got to make sure that you leave enough time to do your analysis and what's expected of you for your dissertation. And luckily, Mahin has she's been able to with my assistance and other people in the team, we've been able to create the research tool, and she now is collecting data, but it was very time intensive. One of our problems was that I got a lot of good advertising, or we got some good advertising through, like I did radio interviews, and our OSON was mentioned in the Age. And so one day we were getting all these people using it, but they were getting stuck at the point where they couldn't drag the people around. And so I was receiving these emails from these people saying, look, I want to use OSON, but I can't drag the photos around. Is it because I'm using an iPad? And so I wrote back to them saying, oh, you can't use an iPad. It doesn't work with iPads. And then one person wrote back and said, oh, that's really weird, because the woman in the Age is using an iPad. So in the article where they had an article about our research, they had a woman, like an older woman with an iPad, supposedly doing our survey. So it's that caused a few problems for us. So it doesn't work with iPad, I have to mention. So it's interesting. We were concerned about whether our participants, older Australians, were going to find, number one, whether we're going to find enough people on Facebook, and number two, whether or not they were going to find this too technically challenging to do. But in fact, our problem was that we weren't able to cater for their more, the devices that they were wanting to do it on. So they were wanting to use iPads, and we just weren't high tech enough for them. This is another view of the network where we're colouring the nodes according to gender. So I don't think. Well, it's interesting. You do seem to get some assortative mixing, or homophily. You're getting, some people's ego nets are the majority of them are female, while there does seem to be certain clusters based on the basis of gender, but you wouldn't expect homophily to be a huge issue or feature of the social networks of people at this age group. So another point about this is that is this is not a complete network. So I mentioned in the page earlier on where I was giving I was talking about different types of networks. I mentioned what an ego network is, and we've been looking at ego networks. But complete networks are where all of the nodes connect to one another, or we have information on whether all of the nodes connect to one another. This is not a complete network here. This is just a series of ego nets. Some of them do connect to one another. So you can see here this massive ego network. They do have a friend in common, so they connect. And there are other examples down here, for example. These are ego networks that are connected up because they have friends in common. But by and large, as expected, because we were asking any Australian of that age group to do this, there's not a huge amount of connectivity. So a lot of our research is going to be based on ego nets rather than complete networks. Okay. And one other interesting part of our research is that we're able to show how resources are clustered within networks. So this is an ego network where and the nodes that are coloured in red, that means that they have resources based on the social capital question that we asked. And you can see here that this person's ego net, all the resources are clustered. People who have resources are in quite a dense cluster up here. While over here, the resources are much more distributed throughout the person's ego net. And so this would be an example where the resources are coming through weak ties, while this is where resources are coming through strong ties. And so we're in the process at the moment of doing statistical analysis to see to what extent ego network structure whether it has an impact on a person's well-being. And are there particular configurations of resources in networks that are better or worse in terms of predicting whether or not a person has good, is aging successfully. Okay. So maybe we'll just pause for a few minutes. So I go into Node Excel and I go, are you filming again now? Yeah. Yep, thank you, yeah. Import group network. Now, I've never actually, this is kind of new for me, so let's just go with the default and see what we get. Apparently I should be able to collect it because I'm a member of the group now. We'll have to log in again. Okay, so I'm giving permission to Node Excel to access my groups. But at the moment it's not telling me that I can download yet, it's thinking. Oh, I need to supply the group name. So there we go, tiles of post. Which one did we say it was? The first one was?
Second one.
Does that match the ID number that you've got? Actually, I can see it up here. Yeah, I can see it. Actually, that's the right one. Okay. So if you saw that, you were able to search for the group by name. And then you click, and then it'll put the ID, which is the group ID number there. And once again, I'm just going to see if I can collect information based on co-comments. So it looks like you get very similar data to the fan pages. It's identical, really. So let's just see what we get just by downloading it. So, a lot of activity, and let me see, is it just... Yeah, I only selected 2 posts, so let's go back a bit further.
What about things like
Okay, I'll pick them up. So, So
Picked up.
we'll go back 10 posts and co-likes as well.
Yeah. Because in Tessa, there's a lot of co-likes, but not necessarily comments.
When you say a lot, it's not going to be, it's like, yeah, it's not thousands. No.
It's only 130.
Okay, yeah, so.
Don't worry, it's not going to jam your computer.
So I hope you are, you're all okay, but your identification with TASA is going to be evident here through your access, through your position on the network. I'm expecting and hoping Karen will be the most central.
I should be.
Okay, so let me see if I can get.
Well, you've got likes in it, that's right.
Yeah. I think we can actually. No, it doesn't seem like we get actually the image that we can show, like the person. So I'll set labels equal to vertex. Yeah, okay, and that's what the network looks like, based on comments and likes. So, in summary, it's very similar to the fan page. It's identical to the fan page, in terms of what you can pull down. So there's a field of research called network ethnography. I don't know a lot about it because I don't do qualitative research, but and my understanding is that it's about using networks to help inform, as a part of the ethnographic approach, and it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like identifying particular people to approach. Also, showing the network to people as you are interviewing them, or to elicit kind of more information about their opinion on different people in the network or organisations and the role that they are playing. So it's a way for you to validate the information that you're getting through the network data or the social media data. Anyone else interested in Facebook? No. So I was interested. The two students from China, we were talking. You're interested in. We've been talking about Sina Weibo, but what about the Facebook equivalent in China? Which my understanding is it's Renren, but there might be others. Is there any interest? Are people using that to conduct research? Are they conducting research into people on Renren, for example, that you're aware of? Because I know there's a lot of research coming out of China with regards to Sina Weibo, which is the Twitter equivalent, but I don't hear about research being done into the Facebook equivalent in China. WeChat sounds like it's one-to-one communication. It's just like instant messaging, isn't it? Really, but audio, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think we'll spend the last 20 minutes talking about the World Wide Web, like hyperlink networks on the World Wide Web. And this is my sort of, I think passion is the wrong word for it, but it's what I got interested in studying the internet for. And initially I was interested in hyperlink networks, and like a lot of people, my interests have then developed to studying Facebook to a lesser extent, and also Twitter. But really, a lot of the work I do is still regarding in the area of hyperlink networks. And so when I say hyperlink networks, I mean it's studying how websites connect to other websites. And these websites may be blog sites, although, to be honest, mapping blogging networks is more challenging than mapping or collecting data on static websites, connections between static websites. And when I say static, I mean, well, non-blogs. I mean, it's just like your typical organisational website, that's set up by a company or a government department or by an NGO or something like that, where it's not a it's a website that says, okay, this is what we are, this is what we do, these are our partners, these are our reports, that kind of thing. So that's often referred to as World Wide Web hyperlink networks when you're looking at the networking patterns between those types of websites. Blog networks are a bit more challenging because of the temporal nature of the data, if you're studying a blog network, your primary interest is going to be in having an understanding of the connections between the bloggers as they were the connections that existed at a particular point in time. Blog data is temporal data, and so most people's interest is not knowing whether or not these two bloggers ever hyperlinked to one another, but rather are they currently hyperlinked to one another? Did they, and was that hyperlink created in the last month, for example, or 1 year ago? Were they hyperlinked to one another? And that's a bit more challenging to collect. So how do we collect hyperlink network data? So this is where I've contributed some tools myself. So I'll quickly show you these tools. So if you want to know more about my research, the following web page gives a rundown. It's the VOSON project website. So VOSON stands for Virtual Observatory for the Study of Online Networks. And this is a project that I set up in 2005, although actually the research actually started back in 2003. It's hidden behind this graphic. I've developed two tools for collecting, or a tool for collecting hyperlink network data. It's called VOSON. And you can use it either as a web application, or you can use it as a plug-in to Node Excel. And so I'll show you what the web application looks like. So this is it. It works with all of the major browsers, and it actually should also work with iPad. The workflow for using VOSON is you firstly need to identify seed sites that you're interested in. So in the same way with Twitter and Facebook, we've discussed how you need to have a starting point to your research. So with Twitter, it might be there's a hashtag that you're interested in, or a particular user you're interested in seeing the connection, how that user connects to other users. With Facebook, it's a fan page that you're interested in, or a group that you're interested in, or it might be your own personal network. So there needs to be sort of an angle that you have or a way to start the data collection process. It's like to seed the data collection process. So with VOSON, it's the same thing. You have to have a starting point, and so the starting point might be that you have a list of URLs of organisations that you're interested in studying. So I've done research on social movements, online activism, and environmental activism. And with a colleague, we had a list of websites that we knew were environmental activist websites and that we were interested in, and we used that as the seed sites. And then we used VOSON to find out how those sites connect to other sites and how other sites connect into those sites. Another example of my research is on refugee and asylum seeker advocacy networks in Australia. And so I've got a paper with Dean Lusher from the University of Melbourne, and Dean had a list of websites of organisations who were involved in advocacy on behalf of refugee and asylum seekers. And so that was the seed set that we used. And then we essentially use like a snowball process where we find out who those websites link to, and then we grow the network in an iterative process. And that is that's a very common way of doing hyperlink network analysis, because the thing about the web is that there's no sample frame from which you can draw your sample from. We don't know, for example, there's no list of all of the websites that belong to environmental activist organisations, unless you're interested in environmental activist organisations that are, for example, registered for tax purposes. So there are registers of those types of NGOs where they actually have to be registered so people can donate money to them. But if the work I've done has been focused on groups that are not necessarily, they don't necessarily even have a real world presence. Some of them are only present online. Some of these environmental activists that we've studied. So we didn't have a population, a known population that we could draw our sample from. So we actually used the network to find additional members of the population to include into our study. So if you're using Voson, the way you would do this is by creating, and I'm missing out a lot of steps here, so a lot of this won't make a great deal of sense, but you create a data set. And I'm going to open up a data set that's already been created. And then you add seed sites to it. Okay? And so from this panel, I would then add the URLs of websites that I'm interested in. So I'm not going to do a live crawl for you at the moment because we won't have enough time to do it. But this is where you would enter the seed sites. So I might, as a seed site, I might enter in voson.anu.edu.au, RSS. Actually, what I'll do is I will do half of this. So I'll create a new database. And I'll call it robtest2. And I'm setting up the parameters for the crawl. I want to find inbound links and I want to find outbound links. And these parameters are just, I'm controlling the web crawler. Does everyone know what a web crawler is, by the way? No. So a web crawler is a piece of software that mimics a human being going through a website. So it's a software that works its way through a website, and each page that it visits within the website, it collects text and hyperlink data from it. So that's how my software collects its information from websites. And so from this page here, we're actually controlling the depth that the web crawler goes to and how much text and information it's collecting from each site. And I'd press Create Database. And now my database is here, robtest2. I would open that up. And then I'd go into Add Seed Sites. And then I'd enter my seed sites here. So these are seed sites that are just from the ANU, so they're not particularly interesting. And then I'd, well, you know what I mean. It's not like environmental activists or anything like that. Add seed sites. And now it's saying, okay, your seed sites are in there and you've identified them as seed sites. And then I would go over to here and I would say, I would press ready to crawl, and it does a bit of computation and it tells me that I have enough credit to do the crawl, and I press that. And now I would go off and have a cup of coffee, and I'd come back and I'd have an email in my inbox telling me that the crawl has run, okay, if everything's worked. But I'm going to open up a database that is identical to what that would have been created based on what I just set up then, but to avoid the wait. So I'll go back here and open up this one called A1, and this is what it would look like. So each row is a web page. So you can see here, it's these are the three seed sites that I identified before. They're the first three in the row here. And then all of these are web pages that connect to the seed sites. Either the seed sites link out to them or they link into the seed sites. And so if I just scroll down here, you can see, so I'm looking at these, and that's my colleague, Lexing. That's her homepage. I linked to her from the Voson project website. That's my company, actually. That's Lexing again, another page of hers. This is the OSON website. So these are all links that I created on the Voson website. Okay, so they all make sense to me. what do we have in these columns? So these are actually nodes in the network. They're web, but they're not. They're web pages, and we now know how these web pages connect to one another. We also have other information that's pulled down. This is the title page. So this is automatically extracted from the web page. These are the page keywords, if they exist, the meta keywords. So the Voson project website, this is how I describe it. These are keywords that I chose myself. And there's also other text data. Well, here are words that are pulled off the website. These are words that are on the home, the home page.
The frequency of the word.
Yeah, and the frequency. Yep, thank you. Yeah. Now, so that's kind of a view of the underlying data. But how does it actually? What do the networks look like? Well, to do that, there's a couple of steps that I'll skip over. You have to create another type of database, which is called a Voson analysis database. I feel like a bit of a chef here. It's like, okay, here's my pre-prepared souffle base or whatever. And this is the Voson analysis database that I've created. Now, it's got less observations in it. So the Voson database had over 400, while this one has 154. And the reason for the difference is that this database shows connections between websites rather than connections between web pages. So for a lot of this work, I'm not actually interested in mapping how web pages connect to other web pages, because then a lot of what the network will be, number one, there'll be thousands and thousands of nodes there, and there'll be like all these pages of an organisation, and I'm actually not interested in seeing all of these different pages. I'm interested in seeing a single node for that organisation. So a lot of the innovative aspects of this software, and this is, software I started working on in 2003. So there's a lot of kind of work that's gone behind it. But one of the innovative aspects of it is it allows the user to have a lot of control over how the pages get grouped into one another together to form nodes. So you can actually have websites or nodes that consist of multiple websites. So it might be the organisation that you're interested in actually has more than one website, and you want to have a single dot to represent that organisation. Or it might be that the organisation you're interested in has different parts of the website, so there might be different brands or different divisions. Say it's a government department, and each division has its own part of the website, but you want to make sure that those divisions are separately mapped, so they're not all grouped together. So you have control over that sort of thing. So how can we visualize this? Well, of course, it's network analysis, so we have to have a visualization, and it's thinking. This is slower than Node Excel because this is actually coming over the web. It's a web application. And that's what the network of these three seed sites look like. I can zoom in with the mouse. I can change the node color. So these are things that will be familiar to you now that you're at Node Excel users. So now I'm setting the node color. So the blue means it's a seed site. So you can immediately see who the seed sites are. I can set up so we can see the node labels. Again. So these, the ANU is very central, not surprisingly. That's computer science there. That's Mark Smith's website. That's Mark Smith's website. So he links to me to both of my websites. I can also show. I can change the node size so it reflects different network measures. So so this is a very simple network, so it's not actually that interesting. But this is showing on the basis of in degree. And you can see that the seed sites have high in degree because these other sites, we've only found them because either they link, one of these seed pages link to them, or they link into a seed page. So this is a network where these blue nodes have been treated equally in the sense of we've given them, in terms of the data collection process, but all the red nodes are actually, we haven't gone and crawled each of those sites. So so that's why these ones look so dominant. It's to do with the data collection. We have, and I know I'm need to be finishing up actually in 3 minutes' time. Very quickly, just a couple of other analysis tools. We have this composition. This is telling me that of the 154 websites in my network, 60 of them are from Australia. I can do a 2-dimensional crosstab. So that's telling me that there are 45 Australian education websites in the 145. There are, yeah, so it's biased towards Australia just based on the seed sites. There's also text analysis that's possible, although I don't know with only 3 seed sites whether how interesting this is going to be. No, it's not interesting at all. I think we only collected text data from one of the seed sites, which was Voson. For some reason, the other sites didn't have text data, but let me just see if I can quickly show you the. Yeah, so this is a cross tabulation you can do where you can show how meta keywords are being used by different types of websites. So it's not interesting because we only got website text content from one of the sites. But in the work that I've done on environmental social movements, we actually looked at the meta keyword choice by different types of environmental activists, and we used this to try and study how the web is being used in collective identity formation on the web. So how organisations use hyperlink networks and also text content to create identity and boundaries of belonging, identifying who's one of them and who's part of the other group through hyperlink networks. So, and you can also download these data and import them into Node Excel or other software for social network analysis. So, so I think on that note, I know it's been a very kind of rushed kind of day today, but I hope that you've had some interesting, exposure to tools and data that might be of use for you in your research. And I'm very happy to. I believe there's another event on now, or there is this ethics panel, but I'm happy to keep chatting with people via email if you have any questions about anything that I've shown you. So I think that's it.